Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully the video was okay, the pre-recorded. It was actually, as you could tell, from spring. We had taught it again. Dr. Song and I had taught that section again this summer when we were teaching high school teachers how to teach this class. That was the one section the recording failed on. So I couldn't use that section. And it was like, I was looking through all our recordings from, it was, 30-hour workshop. We just all week long of teaching them all the material. All right, any questions about access control? Nothing. Okay, so chapter 3, we are going to re-hit some of that when we talk about operating system security and things. Again, this is a survey course. There's a lot of material. I could spend a lot of time on each of these topics. I could talk and talk and talk and talk, but there are limits. Not all of you took the quiz. Every Saturday there's a quiz. Look it up, take it. There's homework due. There's post-it. Look it up, do it. The quizzes, ultimately the quiz is worth, each quiz is worth like 1% of your grade. It's not a big part, or is it each question?
Oh, I don't know.
No, each question. The quizzes total, I don't remember now. Quizzes total 10% of the grade? Yeah, so each quiz is one. Because really it's just to make sure you're up on the material, reading it. And I dropped a couple lowest quizzes, but do take them. I apologize. The one question about the ATM card was weird. I had edited that question, looked at it and said, I just shouldn't do this. Change it, forgot to hit submit. And so the old version was still up there for you guys. So I just this morning hit regrade to give everybody full credit for that one, no matter which answer you gave. So that'll go up. And also apparently the quiz was hiding from the grade book, so it's up there now. All right. That's actually there. You can see me multiple ways. Today we're going to start. I'm going to cover the chapter 4 material. It's short. I'm going to move on to cryptography. Cryptography is going to take multiple lectures. I am going to cover a lot more material than what is in the book when it comes to cryptography. This is this first section will be probably the most technical thing we've done so far, maybe the most technical part in the whole class. Networking is there too. To be really good at cryptography requires really, really solid math skills. I knew somebody, a world-class cryptographer at the University of California, Davis. And I was down there for 2 years on a sabbatical 20 years ago, so 2001, 2002. And he was telling me he does not work with master students. He only works with PhD students. Definitely not undergrads. I said, well, why not master students? Graduate students are usually good at this stuff. He says, it takes them 2 years of taking the in-depth cryptography, graduate level cryptography classes to understand the research questions we're asking. Not even to solve the problem, just to understand the questions. That's where the world-class cryptographers are. Okay. But you can be really, really good. No, let me rephrase this. You don't have to be really, really good at cryptography to use it. I don't know how to rebuild an engine in my car, but I can drive it. I can use it. I haven't hit anyone yet. Oh, well. Technically, that was the minivan. It's not my car, so I'm good. The first time we got the van, I'd been driving a little 4-door sedan. I got a minivan. I pull out of a parking lot. Well, my wife's like, you're not taking the turn wide enough. I'm fine. Scrape. She said, well, at least you're the first one to dent our new car. All right. Let's go to the slides here. Okay, where'd they go? All right. So this next section, auditing and accountability. So we introduction, just what is cybersecurity, identification and authentication, tell me who you are. Let me convince you who you are. Now that I know who you are, I will authorize you for access, and I will give you, are you trying to ask a question or just stretching?
I was stretching.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to double check. What access or access control authorization, what are you allowed to access? Now that I know who you are, you've convinced me you're who you claim you are, what are you allowed to do? Now that you've done all that, something bad happened. Well, who did it? I gave you authorization to do something. Did you do the right thing? What if I gave you authorization to do too much? I gave you access, this university gave me access to all the grades for all your classes instead of just my class. And I go in and change one of your grades. Something happened. There was a problem. If I do, and by the way, like at the university, if there's a grade change on one of your classes from, say, last semester that you took from me, usually it's a completion of an incomplete or something, I get a separate email message. This student's grade was changed. If you did not do this, let us know. Just as a way of checking. So we're going to talk about things like that in this section. So accountability, all actions of an entity. And we say entity, not user, because it could be a computer. It could be some other device on the network. It could be that those actions can be traced uniquely to that entity. That's what we want for accountability. So keeping accurate records of who did what and when they did it is important. We should always hold users accountable, should always hold the system accountable. And holding someone accountable means making sure that person is responsible for their actions. So with to do accountability, let me get the, well, here, I'll try it this way. You need to identify, oh, that's a bad color. Let's try. There we go. You need to identify who they are. You need to make sure that who they claim they are was actually authenticated. So somebody doesn't do something claiming to be me and it wasn't me. They need to be authorized to do what they did, and they need to have access to do what they did. All of those are checked and logged and kept track of it when you're doing accountability. I need all this information. Okay, I'm going to go back and forth on these glasses. There we go. So what do we use? We use the ability of what we call an audit record or auditing. We create and protect and retain in an information system records, logs, or audit records to the extent needed to enable the monitoring, analysis, investigation, reporting of unlawful, unauthorized, or inappropriate information system activity. We do this to ensure in actions of individual systems and the users can be uniquely traced to them. Again, hold them accountable. Now, audit log, keeping track of who did what, does not give accountability if the attacker can modify the log. If I can go into a system, do things, and delete the evidence that I did anything, no accountability. If I can go into the system and change the name of who did something, no accountability. Or change what they did, no accountability. The thing we have to worry about, though, is at what granularity, at what level of detail should the events be logged? Let's think about this. Say I open a file, a Word document. I go in or these slides, because I went in and edited these slides this morning. So I go in and I make some edits to the slides and I save them. Should any of that activity be logged? And if so, how much? Do we keep track of every change I made to every slide in the system audit logs? Yes or no? Yeah.
Wouldn't that depend on what it is you're making changes to?
It depends on what you're making changes to. Good answer. So if I'm making changes to this PowerPoint document, no. Maybe the fact that I wrote it, the last time I wrote it, that's important. That I opened it, maybe that's important. If I'm changing the database of the users, the list of users in the system, every change I'm making to that is important. Maybe every change to the payroll database is important. A good one I know somebody tried to do, they went into the payroll database, changed their salary. The paychecks were sent out, and then they changed it back. So when they did an audit, they're like, oh, wow, we got a problem here. We paid too much. And they go through the database. Well, this is how much we should have paid. Here's how much we actually paid. What went wrong? Where's the extra money? But then they had another audit log that kept track of every deposit they sent out. And they went through that and noticed, wait, there's a discrepancy now in this secondary log. This one does not match the main database. Person didn't go in and change that log. They didn't know about it. Okay. If you do too much fine-grained information, you're going to run out of space. Plus, there's an efficiency problem. Every time I'm writing to the log, I'm doing something, I'm not doing something, the computer's not doing something else. And so we have to worry about that. If there's so much data, you can't actually find when an attack occurred because you're swamped and buried in the data. For coarse grain logs, we're not doing much. We might miss an attack entirely. Maybe the log only logged, hey, this person logged in at this time and logged off at that time. That's not enough information. So, like I said, they must be protected against tampering. They must be protected against deletion, and we have to choose what level of granularity we keep track of things. Now, where are these logs stored? Depends on the system you're in. But you can search for system logs in almost any system and find them. And they'll give you examples. Now, what's interesting is there one, I'm not going to show you an example right now of it, but there's one on Microsoft Windows that keeps track of everything that's going on in the system. It's so much information, it's not understandable. I had one of these phone calls where somebody calls up, hi, this is a bill from Microsoft, from Microsoft Windows, and we noticed that your computer's been infected. It is launching attacks against other people. We need you we're going to help you fix that problem. Usually I hang that up, but this time I decided I got some time to kill. Really? Oh my God, thank you for calling me, Microsoft. What do I do? They said, okay, here's what you do. Go to here. Do you know where that is? Well, what are you talking about? They walk me through, open up this system log file. Now look at this and look at all these. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot there. And he's like, yeah, this tells you your system's infected. This is proof that what I'm telling you is true. Now go to my website. And it's a weird website. That's like, that's not Microsoft's website. Oh, it's a subsidiary company we just bought that does this for you. Now download this anti-malware tool and it'll scan and install it and it'll scan your system and fix everything for us. And it's only $125. And I said, I got a better idea. Why don't you call your mother and tell her you're a criminal and see how well she likes that. So I did that one other time. And I hear the guy, oh, Mom. All right. Accountability. There's a lot of different things when it comes to accountability. There's one issue, it's called legal accountability. Information security requires companies be good stewards of your data. We talked about this earlier. They should do their best to protect the data. However, people usually do what you inspect, not what you expect. So if I'm not checking that they did the right thing, it doesn't mean they're doing the right thing. But if they know I'm checking, they're more likely to do it. That's a great computer security thing. It's a great human resources thing. My father kept telling me that he was chief human resources officer of a multinational corporation. And he's like, if you want to improve the productivity of your employees, check what they're doing. And they will do what you inspect. Now, companies will often do the minimum necessary to comply with any law or regulation. We are compliant. We have not violated any laws. We have followed all the regulations. I don't know how many times I hear that when a company makes a public announcement when somebody complains about something they did. You polluted the waterways. We followed all laws and regulations. Your product is defective. We followed all laws and regulations. They always say that. So additional laws are created to enforce accountability. You cannot ever expect everyone to be honest, decent, following the law, not committing criminal behavior, etc. You can assume most people are good. Most people will not break the law. Most people will do their best to protect other people and protect things, but not everybody. So the laws are created. We have the 1996 Health Insurance Affordability and Accountability Act, which we'll talk about later. That's HIPAA. This law is designed to protect your individual patient's privacy when it comes to health records. There's the 1998 Digital Millennium Copyright Act. This is to protect intellectual property, specifically movies, artistic things, movies, music, books, other things that people, digital creations that are now out there subject to copyright. How do we protect rights from this? And that one mostly dealt with one portion of this dealt with if there's copyright protection software or technology like cryptography technology to protect the copyright, what penalties are if you try to bypass that technology. Sarbanes-Oxley in 2002 was dealing with financial records. This was shortly after Enron and WorldCom lied a whole lot, and a lot of people lost money. And so it deals with the financial reporting records, et cetera, and accountability at the highest levels. If a CEO signs off a financial record saying this is correct, they're liable if it's not correct. 2002 Homeland Security Act also, which included the Federal Information Security Management Act, or FISMA, talks about cybersecurity issues of government systems and accountability controls, etc. Okay, I know you can't read this very well, especially if you're watching the video on a small mobile device, but there are laws in every state reporting data breach. If your system was broken into and you have my personal private records out there, you have to report it. If my personal private information was stolen, you got to let me know. So from the Idaho Code, says the title of it is Disclosure of Breach of Security of Computerized Personal Information by an Agency, Individual, or Commercial Entity. A city, county, or state agency, individual, or commercial entity that conducts business in Idaho and that owns or licenses computerized data that includes personal information about a resident of Idaho shall, when it becomes aware of a breach of the security of the system, conduct in good faith a reasonable and prompt investigation to determine the likelihood that personal information has been or will be misused. What do we mean it has been or will be misused? If somebody got a copy of it, it has been or will be misused. That's the standard the courts have. But if they get a usable copy, if they get encrypted copy, it's personal information. We'll talk later about what that is. My name and address are in the phone book. That's publicly available information. That's not personal information. Somebody downloads the phone book, even if it's through a computerized breach, we don't care. But if they download my bank account number, my passwords, my credit card numbers, my retirement account numbers, etc., that I get. If the investigation determines misuse of information about an Idaho resident has occurred or is reasonably likely to occur, the agency, individual, or commercial entity shall give notice as soon as possible to the affected Idaho resident. And I get these notices on unfortunately too regular of a basis. We've had a breach. Your data may have been released. Actually, not as much in the last year or two as I did before. Notice must be made in the most expedient time possible without unreasonable delay, consistent with legitimate needs of law enforcement and consistent with any measures necessary to determine the scope of the breach, to identify the individuals affected and restore the reasonable integrity of the computerized data system. Now, some other states actually put in deadlines. Within 30 days or 15 days or whatever it is of detecting the breach, you must have enough investigation to figure out whose data has been compromised and let them know. If additional information comes forth during the investigation and other names are released, you must let them know, et cetera. Idaho's law is more reasonable time frame type of wording. So for cybersecurity benefits, there are some specific cybersecurity benefits for accountability. There's non-repudiation, which I talked about before, preventing someone from denying they performed an action. I'm not the one who deleted those files. I'm not the one who changed my paycheck. I'm not the one who added a new user account. Deterrence, let people know they're being monitored and held accountable for their actions. Intrusion detection and prevention. When you audit information in your environment, you can detect and prevent intrusions in both the logical and physical sense. Think about auditing in terms of who came into a building, swipe card access into our building in the evenings or weekends. Years and years ago, somebody came into our building during the summer. They were renovating some of the computer labs downstairs, and they had these big 55-inch, 4K displays they were putting in. Those walked out the door. Several of the faculty offices in computer science were entered. Our meeting room was entered. I know that something disappeared. So a few things disappeared from there, and we could see hanging. Some stuff had been moved on the projector. They were trying to take the projector down. They did get a projector out of another room. There was a swipe card access lock. We know who got into the building that time period, and they turned it over to police, and they figured out who it was. Person didn't think these things were being logged. Invisibility of records. If monitoring, logging, and auditing are part of the normal course of business, these records are admissible in court of law. Digital forensic evidence. I think Dr. Soul was doing something bad, I'm going to go do extra investigation, not part of the normal business, not admissible. I'm eavesdropping on him. I'm spying on him. It's wiretapping. I actually had that discussion with an FBI agent one time. He said, if we're scanning emails for certain things, or we're scanning, student accounts for certain things as part of the normal course of business and everything, you're fine. Once you get to the point you're more than 50% sure it's one individual and you're focusing on that individual, it's wiretapping. And you need a court order, et cetera, et cetera. Especially since we're a state agency. There's extra rules. If I was doing this at home and thought my kids were doing something, it's a different story. My wife was doing something, different story, Whether or not my kids are adults or not, also is a different story in this case. So auditing. What is auditing? So we have these logs, we've taken track of it. What is an audit? Anyone, think about like business, financial records. What is an audit? And I already have shown the records here, but yeah.
Comparing what you expect with what the actuality is.
Comparing what you expect with reality or actuality. Okay, close. Yeah.
Making sure everything is in line and in order to what it should be.
Making sure everything is in line and order. And what was the last part?
Basically just compared to what it should be.
Compared to what it should be. Okay. So University of Idaho, we're a large organization. We do business with the federal government. We have grants and contracts, $100 million a year or more of grants and contracts the university deals with. We're audited to make sure we have good financial records and good tracking. There are thousands of contracts. My research center alone has, over a dozen contracts, hundreds at least, if not thousands. Do they audit every single one when they come for an audit? No. No, they can't. There's no time. What they do is an audit is a random sample. They pick several, they say, let's look, are your processes being followed? Audits are not intended to find fraud. Audits are not intended to find errors. They're intended to find if you have good standard basic business practices and they're being followed. Now, in cybersecurity, we kind of want to do more now. We actually, I don't want to just see if there's good practices followed. I want to see if there was an attack. But we still use the term auditing. But in a normal financial record sense, we're just doing snapshots. Okay, we'll at this point in time, we looked at your records, and this is why you ever hear of like having a double set of books or cook set of books. The good books, the reality are kept in one set of books. The books that the auditors don't find problems in are another set of books. Oh, we look through, we didn't see best practices, etc. Now, you have to be careful. So I think about WorldCom, or was it Enron? No, it was WorldCom. They were misreporting earnings, misreporting debts. The CEO was, up and doing all this. Arthur Andersen, I believe it was, the auditing company, was helping them audit. They found problems, but we're here to help you. They never reported the problems. When it came out, the WorldCom was cooking its books and doing all this financial thing, and all the investors were losing money. Both WorldCom and Arthur Andersen went out of business because people said, okay, an auditing company doing the wrong thing, that's bad. But yeah, now you got to trust the people to do. So do you audit the auditors? That's something we have to worry about in cybersecurity. Are your tools good enough, or are they helping? Okay. So why do you audit? One, figure out what's going on. Just logging, keeping track of stuff, monitoring real-time information, or auditing and assessing. Is there a vulnerability analysis? Is there penetration testing? So one thing people will do is like, I'll do an attack. Again, a white hat attack, a good guy attack against your system, red teaming, trying to break into your system and see if your auditing catches this is abnormal behavior. This is not normal. So we can test whether the audit works. So what do you audit? Again, this way, we're going back to now looking at processes. Strength of your factors, such as password, dual factor login. What processes do you have in place to see how good these are? Software licenses. Is your software legally obtained and installed in your system? What's the process for installing software on your system? What's the process for updating and patching the software on your system? Do you have a routine process? Is it automated? Is it something somebody manually does? If they do, I'm going to go back and look over the last 2 months and see, were they done, did you have Patch Tuesday where everything was patched on a Tuesday, like you said? How about internet usage? How much is the internet being used? What is your bandwidth? What sites are being visited? Let's look at a snapshot of that. Is there large amounts of data transferring from your site to another site? Is that normal? Is that part of the normal business, or is that unexpected? How many devices are connected to the internal network? How are they connected to the internal network? How do you authorize letting a device connect to the internal network? Do you know which devices are connected to your internal network? How about a past employee? So my brother-in-law worked for a company that did groundwater testing, is one of the things they did. So they would hire out with, chemical companies, or when they're doing construction or anything, they would do samples of the soil, sample the groundwater, see is it contaminated, was there any leakage or anything. They'd write up their reports. That's very sensitive information. That could hurt a company a lot if they realized there was a leak and pollution before they could take care of it. Very sensitive information. Well, the company lost one of their major contracts. So he and the family had gone off to Disneyland. When they get back, he finds out he's fired, laid off, because there were just, he was the low man on the totem pole at that time in that group. So he gets to the door. They say, I'm sorry, your position's been terminated. There were 2 security guards there that escorted him to his desk, watched him as he took his personal stuff out of his desk into a cardboard box. You've probably seen this on movies. That's real, what they do. He was not allowed on the computer system, not allowed to take any electronic, USB devices or anything with anything recording, not allowed to take any pieces of paper that were corporate, and then escorted out of the building. He was still given his 2-week severance pay and everything, but past employees are a risk, and they have information that may hurt the company or may be valuable, intellectual property, et cetera. So what access do you give them? And when is that access terminated? So I know University of Idaho has a policy. We have email accounts for students. You're at vandals.uidaho, and we have emails for staff at uidaho.edu, no vandals. The moment a staff member is terminated, they lose access to that account. That happened to a couple of my students this summer. Well, their summer positions terminated Saturday. Their school year position started Monday, but on Sunday they lost access to their accounts. I was like, but they're still doing the same work. It's just we changed them from full-time to part-time. But apparently it was somebody set up to be a termination of position, not a change of hours. And so that was annoying. The other thing the university did related permissions, this was in May, they did a scan and said, oh, is this person an employee? So faculty members are paid 9 months out of the year, normally. They're paid during the school year, we're not paid during summer. Unless we get a grant or contract or a special thing that pays. Most people don't do that. So May 15th, end of school year. Well, I'm running a research center here. I have staff that work year round. May 16th, I no longer had access to approve their time cards. Even, and this was really bad because May 16th was a Monday to approve the time cards for the previous 2 weeks when I was working and they were working. But I got transitioned to a leave without pay, but with benefits, my summer position. And they said, that's somebody who's not allowed to work. So they can't authorize time cards. But no, faculty are special beasts. We still work during the summer, whether you pay us or not. May not work 40 hours a week. Okay, some of us do. But as my wife said, part-time for me means 40 hours a week. I said, I'm working part-time during the summer. So great. At least I usually have grants and contracts pay for at least part of it. Never full-time, but okay, logs. Computer systems have logs that can keep track of the use of factors in authentication. When did somebody, when did I use a dual mobile login? When did I try to log into the system? With a good password, with a bad password? So failures to attempts to authenticate. Access or failures to access information. Oh wait, Jim House was trying to access the university payroll database. That's something we're gonna keep track of. Communication between people. That's the metadata you often hear about. Like right now, Congress is asking telecommunication companies and social media companies and others to keep that metadata to know related to a whole bunch of people for the January 6th attack. And so they're saying, we have a lot of people, we don't know if they were involved in that attack or not, but we want this metadata. We know who talked to whom, at what point. So not only the people who were arrested, but staffers, members of Congress, people in the White House, people in the Department of Justice, other who was doing what. Keep the metadata. We don't know what they said, but I want to know that, did Joe Biden call Donald Trump at that day? Keep track of that information, Okay, maybe those are two bad examples. They probably can't audit theirs, but anyway. But that is something you can do in audit logs too. Other user resources. I've got a normal account. Suddenly I'm using gigabytes of extra data that more than I'm supposed to. What am I doing? Or we had one student who was downloading electronic books and printing them out on our printer in our lab. Students have paid accounts, so many pages per year you can print out on campus, but he was in the lab, we weren't charging, so he was printing everything out on the lab. Information for just troubleshooting purposes. Was there software error, hardware failure, et cetera. You want to make sure the logs cannot be tampered with. make sure the logs are saved, make sure they're archived. And then you monitor them. You look for specific patterns of activity. This can be used to improve performance. You look for failures, resource shortages, network speeds. Can be used to look for known patterns of attacks. There's certain things, oh, this has to happen first before this, before this. I'll look for changes from the normal. And there are systems out there, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems that do that type of monitoring. Okay, specifically intrusion detection system device, typically another completely separate computer from the one you use to run your business and monitors activities, identify malicious or suspicious events. They usually have a response function. They alert someone. They don't do anything. This looks suspicious. I'm going to tell somebody. They have sensors that collect the data, usually monitoring network traffic, analyzers that look to say, hey, is this typical of an attack? And then a user interface to display the information to the users. The users can look and say, or the system administration team, security team look at it and see, is this something we want to worry about? There are some that are very common, and there's a simple intrusion detection system called Snort, which I'll talk about later, which finds very common patterns. Like if a virus is going across your network, we have a signature of the virus, a way of scanning, say, yep, that's that virus. It'll send an alert saying, we just saw that virus go across your network.
Do you get viruses that, so instead of having an auditing or whatever thing give you a message, do you get viruses that send messages saying like there's something that happened?
So the viruses could try to spoof the IDS system or the security system, telling them there was an alert. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible. The way the IDSs are usually set up, often not. But there are ways where people can do that in certain systems, yeah. We have host-based intrusion detection systems. They monitor what's happening on a single computer, usually a server. Goal, protect the one machine and its data. There's network-based IDSs, monitor network traffic, analyze the network, transport application protocols. I'll talk about those later. So they protect the entire network. And there's hybrid ones that combine both. We saw this on a network and this is happening on the server combined. Now we see the attack. There's also an advanced version of that called an intrusion prevention system. It's an extension of an IDS. It includes the ability to attempt or block or prevent detected malicious activity. Could just cut off access to an account, user access, rejects traffic. So we monitor, collect the data, perhaps increase the amount of data collection so it can say, oh, I'm seeing something suspicious, automatically update the monitoring. That's different than a user doing it. They can protect to act to reduce exposure. They can reduce bandwidth limits. They can, like I said, turn off accounts, signal alert to other protection components, etc. Shut down part of the network. So, but they're intended to react as quickly as we can. Oh, we see an attack going, let's shut things down, then talk to a human and get them to figure out what to do. I mentioned auditing with assessment. Assessments are tests to find and fix vulnerabilities before an attacker does. Vulnerability assessment, is your software up to date? Are there common misuses, mistakes, or errors we see? Did you, we have a list of them. Did you do those too? Are the mechanisms, authorizations put in place to meet the security policy? So I'll check, are the passwords simple? Or is there something to prevent me from having a too simple password? And so vulnerability assessment, we look at the policies, procedures, run this, and we go through the audit logs. These things are supposed to be audited as part of the your security system. Vulnerability assessment, look, are they being audited? I will try to log an account with a bad password and then check, does that show up in the audit log? There's penetration testing where we go even further. We use tools and techniques available to the bad guys, and we actually attack the system, try to break in, try to do things the bad guys would do, and see how good the auditing tools and monitoring logging watch that. Did they stop it? Did we have an intrusion prevention system that stopped it, or intrusion detection system that detected it? So, all that's tied together. Okay, questions on that? None, good. You all understand it perfectly. That's great.